In part one of our Competing Older panel discussion with Charlie Martin, Brian Pollock, Iain Simpson, and Anne Spalding, the group of actively competing 55 plus pipers talked about some of the challenges and rewards of staying in the game. They discussed how they stayed motivated and sharp and offered advice to others who might also want to keep going with competing bands or in solo events. In part two, the accomplished quartet delves into ideas and possible solutions to help retain and foster participation. We started by asking for their thoughts regarding piping and drumming associations and what they might do to keep players involved and avoid drifting away like the vast majority are prone to do.
I'm I'm not sure. I did think about this. I'm not sure what they would do. As soon as you put an age on something, I think it puts you into a category that you don't necessarily want to be in. I think the Scottish Pipers Association used to hold a veterans competition in Glasgow, and I used to take my mum through to that. And I think it was, I'm sure it was 55 and over. Now, when I think about that, that would worry me a little bit because that means, well, I could play in the veterans competition, but I don't feel that I would be ready for that yet. You wonder if if they did put an age on something that it would actually stop people playing. I mean, imagine a veterans competition if they put that on and it had to be 55 and over. They do this in golf, don't they? If it had to be 55 and over, that would put Jack Lee and Roddy McLeod into the veterans category. And of course, Roddy McLeod's just won the Bratick Gorm. So age isn't a barrier. So you just wonder about putting an age on something isn't great. But they do that in golf, don't they? They have the veterans competition.
The BC Pipers Association has a senior category, but that's as a lead up to grade 4 amateur. So it really is for the older adult learner, not so much for an experienced person. I'm not sure that it's in our association a problem. There's an awful lot of gray hair in most of the bands, and when we look around here, I'd say youth was the problem, is that we don't have enough of it, even though we do have some good high school programs and whatnot in Southern California and a couple here. We had one Bay Area band where the average age was 70, and they're still a strong competing band. The pipe major was a leading judge here, and they were very, very active. But again, the average age was 70, so there were very few people younger than probably their late 40s, and quite a few over that age. You look at our top bands, LA Scots has Scott McDonald as their pipe major. He's our age. Prince Charles Pipe Band, there's still quite a few of their original members, so they're all in their late 50s and 60s now. So I'm not really sure that it's as big a problem here for WSBA. And also WSBA does seem to have a pretty open view of things like marching for the march if you're disabled. Though I think maybe if I had to pick something, that would be maybe the one thing for an association to do. Was I think there's a stigma about not marching for your march competition for whatever reason. And I've heard some of the older competitors say, well, I really can't march anymore. I don't know that I'm going to do it. Well, there are rules saying that you don't have to if you have a physical limitation. So I think the associations could do more to bring that out and maybe reduce the stigma a little bit.
What about associations creating a new grade for competing pipe bands, the reverse of the juvenile category, where all players have to be older than a certain age?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure, because in most of my time, I've never really heard anyone crying out for that. And the one thing about the RSPBA is the members of the bands can actually change things. So if they really wanted something like that, they could actually go to their branch meeting, lobby their music board rep, and say, listen, we want a category, whether it be veterans or whatever. But just on that, I was actually thinking about that. Once I retire from Bog Hall, finally, I might put together a band, and it might be along the lines of some veterans like the three Walker brothers. That's Ross, Grant, and Craig. Alvis Kerr, ex-Bog Hall, Donald Grant, Iain Mackay, and Kenny Pettigrew. That's my 8 pipers. Then my drum corps wouldn't be a problem. I've got Tom Brown, MDE. I've got Northern Brown. I've got Sandra Brown. Throw in Craig Turpey. And I might even encourage Ian Tobin to come along as a wee veteran as well. And then the bass section would obviously be Big Daz, Stephen McQuillan, and Eck. And that's it sorted. So there's the band. Now they're all grade 1. They have been grade 1. They've all won championships in grade 1. So it would be I'm not sure what grade they would actually compete in. Because then it would be absolutely ancient. But I do have to say that I did like when I was across in, I think it was Maxville 2009, because I was encouraging all my pupils to play in the solos, I found a niche for myself, and that was the over 55. I think it was over 55 at the time, North American Championships, and I managed to win that. And that's my claim to fame, the 2009 North American champion. And I'll leave it there.
Yes, I'm definitely not in favor of it. I think it's because there's so many different levels of competition to put a band together, for example, would be very difficult. And as far as solos are concerned, it's also, there's a certain amount of stigma, and I can hear everybody else's kind of hesitation about it. You're not good enough to play in the regular stuff. So
Ryan, you're right. I have to say, I must correct myself, because I said it was an over 55 competition in 2009. It wasn't. It was an over 45 competition.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I like the fact that everybody should play in the grade that they feel comfortable and where they can contribute. And it shouldn't have anything to do with age.
And what are the possible reasons for most pipers and drummers older than, say, 40 drifting away from the scene?
There is a reason why the older folks do start diminishing in the ranks. So there's a few reasons. Of course, there's health and all that, but a lot of people, when they get into their 40s and 50s, they're at the peak of their careers as well. They take on big jobs, they get relocated to different companies, etc. So that's a main factor, and we can't do anything about that. Another one too, on the opposite end of that spectrum, is that there's so many people in financial difficulty in these difficult times, and it's not cheap to be involved in a band, all the travel involved, the gasoline and everything like that. Some people that's a burden for, and not to mention the airfare to Scotland or wherever as well. Those are real considerations and real reasons why people drop out of piping as they mature.
In California, again, I think there's maybe a different dynamic than, especially in Scotland, where there's a lot of youth instruction. We have more adult players and senior adult players, people taking up the pipes in their 50s and 60s than probably ever before. And I think the attitude of instruction at various summer and winter schools has changed. And there's a lot more encouragement even amongst the top players. And also the access to instruction is like never before with the internet. And I see it especially with the wave of service pipers that learned after 9/11 and really had that impetus to learn and take up whatever they felt as a tradition. It's been 20 years and everybody's hitting retirement, and they're getting actually more and more active into piping and leaving the service bands and joining into the civilian band. So it's actually a big different dynamic here, I believe.
Fascinated by that, the older, starting older. I do have a group of 3 older pupils they're all members of the Royal Scottish Pipers Society, actually. But and they've come to me regularly. They come as a group, but they're all getting on. You know, they're all a little bit older than me, and but yeah, they're all really keen to play. It's not always great to listen to though, but that's not necessarily because it's because they haven't really, you know, they've started playing maybe when they were younger and then given up and then they've come back to it and they just want to play. And that's all they play for, just to come here. I've just started an older, when I say he's older, I mean, he's in his early 20s and he was somebody that learned at school. And this is a new thing for me, is actually teaching someone that bit older. But that's not very old. I appreciate that. But having somebody as keen to do it again, I'll teach any age now. I think I would do that. The kids just do what they're told. They tend to do what they're told. The adults ask questions. They always have to ask why. That's a problem. You just, you know, why do we have to play a G bass note like that or whatever? I said, well, that's just the way we do it. But yeah, that's
good. Different. Good stuff.
Mm. I'm on a committee that puts on a little indoor competition in Northern California, and you know, we have a lot of older competitors, and some of them learned when they were in their 60s, and when they get into the prize lists, they have as much joy as Callum Beaumont winning the Glenfiddich. You know, because they work so hard at it and they have so much heart. And, you know, often, again, it's a frustration of they're up against people that have been playing longer or whatever. And so it's really motivating when that happens.
I would just like to add that I met a gentleman playing in the local Oshawa Legion band about a year ago. I went down to one of the practices because they had some photos of me they wanted to show. Anyway, he's 87 years old and still playing in the band. So there's hope for all of us.
Our thanks to Charlie Martin, Brian Pollock, Iain Simpson, and Ann Spalding for this two-part discussion on competing older after age 55. Stay tuned to Pipes Drums for more interviews and conversations with leading lights in the piping and drumming world.